Hey, Hewlett, why don't you take some of this stuff home with you? Me and Foley, we didn't even finish the pastrami sandwiches.
No, Dutch. It ain't necessary.
It's just gonna go in the garbage otherwise. You got all them grandkids to feed.
It ain't necessary.
Don't be proud. Wrap up the scraps and take them home.
Thank you, Dutch.
It ain't nothing.
What's going on, everybody? This is Jacob with 8-Bit Heroes, and this is episode 2 of We Need to Talk. And today we're going to talk about uh, The Little Mermaid. And I didn't really want to make this video, but it seems like it needs to be addressed. So let's talk about it. So on July 4th, it was announced that Haley Bailey from Grownish will be cast as Ariel in The Little Mermaid. And ever since then, on social media and on the internet in general, it just seems like there are two very extreme camps in regard to discussion about this particular announcement. One side, you have, which is basically talking about how this is egregious, that a black girl can't be a mermaid, that mermaids can't be black, and just really ridiculous and racist arguments that don't even really bear that much attention, nor do they deserve it. So that's just much airtime as we're going to give that. Then we have another side which is touting this particular announcement as some sort of triumph or justice being served by essentially taking a character that is traditionally portrayed as being a ginger white girl, and now that she's being cast as black, it's some sort of uh, revenge or get back for past wrongs being done or past whitewashing of characters. And this is a very interesting argument. I don't think it's right either. I don't think two wrongs make a right, nor do I think that taking from somebody else really enriches or gives to you. But we're going to talk about the casting itself and the motivations behind it. Now, the casting in of itself there's nothing wrong with that. And as far as the actress is concerned, she's a fine actress. Haley Bailey has done a great job in Grownish. That's really where I know her from, and I really like her character, and I like her acting. She has shown a lot of growth and a lot of talent in that particular role, so I really like her. Um, and because I like her as an actress, I feel like not only the community, but she, as an actress, deserved her own character. She deserved to have her own character, even if it is still The Little Mermaid as a title. She deserved to have her own story, her own character with her own name and backstory, not to be the stand-in mermaid or the mermaid for right now. Because we all know how this works, especially if you read comics or just know anything about media in general. Whenever a character is changed from a classic character to either a palette swap or or just the character in of itself is changed in any real way, it always reverts back to its original formula, because the original is going to always be the original. It's always the icon, and anything else is secondary. So, what is very interesting about this is that this seems to be a trend in Hollywood in the past, I'd say about 10 or so years. This seems to be a trend of taking these ginger characters and basically giving us these characters on loan, these handout heroes and handout heroines on loan for a little while to the black community. And there's multiple examples of this. Whether we're talking about Wally West, who is Kid Flash and later becomes the Flash, or the West family in general, portrayed on the CW, who is normally a family of gingers, is now a black family. Whether you're talking about Jimmy Olsen and Supergirl being turned from a ginger white guy to a black guy. Annie, Little Orphan Annie. We remember that remake where the character of Little Orphan Annie, who's usually portrayed as a ginger little redheaded girl, was then given to a black actress. Or Mary Jane Watson, who is in the new Spider-Man movies, portrayed by Zendaya, another great actress, uh, who has now been, turned into a black character. So it's very interesting that not only is the black community seeming to be only deserving of these handout heroes, but the ginger redhead community seems to be the one that are taken from. It's a very interesting phenomenon. I don't really have an explanation for it. It just is. It's kind of weird. So looking at this, I have no problem with a black girl being the Little Mermaid. None whatsoever. In fact, I think that that would actually have been smart had it been done the right way. And what I mean by the right way is that the Little Mermaid is a title. It is a title to a movie, just like the Karate Kid was a title to a movie. Uh, Ariel is a character that exists that's a little redheaded girl. Okay, so essentially, what I'm getting at here is that the only requisite for the Little Mermaid is for the main character, to be a little mermaid. That is it. In the same way that the only requisite for the Karate Kid is for a kid that does karate, whereas Daniel-san, the main character from the original Karate Kid, is a character, a white character. But the Karate Kid, all he has to be a kid that does karate. So with that being said, we're I feel like the failure here is that there are respectful ways to pass titles and mantles on to new characters, and then there's lazy, sloppy ways where you just color swap and palette swap these characters with no real regard for A, their existing fan base, and B, the community that you're trying to pander to in this lazy way. So examples of how this can be done respectfully, because we've already looked at a couple of disrespectful examples, are look at Miles Morales from Enter the Spider-Verse, or the Ultimate Marvel Comics. Miles Morales is Spider-Man, but he is not Peter Parker. Peter Parker is Peter Parker and will always be Peter Parker. Why is this important? Because the people that created Miles Morales understand that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He will always be Spider-Man. He is the iconic Spider-Man. He is the original Spider-Man. There have been other Spider-Men. There have been Spider-Women. There have been characters that have taken on this mantle, but have their own character. And that's the way that it should be done. Miles Morales was given the title of Spider-Man by a dying Peter Parker. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You can look at other characters like John Stewart. John Stewart is Green Lantern, but John Stewart is not Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan is Green Lantern. John Stewart is Green Lantern. Kyle Rayner is Green Lantern. And if we're looking at a ginger, Guy Gardner is Green Lantern. But John Stewart is not any of these other characters. He is his own character with his own backstory, his own motivations, and a very well thought out character. So these are examples of how this can be done respectfully and thoughtfully. What we have here is a case where Disney has effectively just given us Ariel, the Little Mermaid, on loan, and now we know that Haley Bailey's portrayal of Little Mermaid, no matter how good it is, no matter how well she sings the songs, no matter how well acted, will always be secondary to the original Little Mermaid, because that's the first thing that people think about in their minds. That's what's on all the merchandising. That's what's in the video games. That's what's in any type of media that has been produced about the Little Mermaid, is Ariel, the little ginger redheaded girl. So Haley Bailey's portrayal will always be secondary. That's just how this works. Now, with that being said, we can look at where the origins of this type of idea of taking from one community and given to another community are. But we can also look at the fact that this isn't going to stop with just taking from the ginger community and giving to the black community. In particular, this has already been done to the black community. It's just that nobody really noticed. And the example of that would be Captain Marvel. Now, you could say, what do you mean? Captain Marvel is White Lady, Carol Danvers, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you read comic books, like I'm a big fan of comic books, as anybody that watches my podcast knows, is that, everybody involved in the podcast are huge comic book fans. And the reason that that's important is because Captain Marvel, as a Marvel property and a Marvel character, has been portrayed by three different characters. Uh, in particular, a man or a Kree man named Marvel, a black woman, Monica Rambeau, and rather recently by Carol Danvers. Now, the reason that that's important is because the Captain Marvel, known as Monica Rambeau, was her own character. She is the most iconic of the Captain Marvel, of the female Captain Marvels. She was first, and yet the movie, when it came out, was about Carol Danvers, blonde-haired white Captain Marvel. Why is that important? Well, because you can choose whichever character you want as far as making a movie, whatever makes sense for the story or what have you. But when you look at Captain Marvel as a movie, they include Monica Rambeau. She's in the movie. She's just made to be a little girl who looks up to the white Captain Marvel. This is a slap in the face. This is insulting because, again, Captain Marvel was originally a black woman. So there's already a character that has been taken from a community and given to another on the other side. But again, nobody noticed. And because nobody noticed, it was swept under the rug and viewed as some sort of triumph for women, when in actuality, the character should have been black from the beginning. And the character of Marvel was then disrespected. Marvel, being a Kree man, was turned into a woman, an older woman. And again, another slap in the face to the original fan base. Now, with that being said, there's also a petition for people that are upset about this to make Captain Marvel a black woman and recast the role, because again, Captain Marvel was originally portrayed as a black woman who exists in the comics to this day. So, now that we know that this has happened before, we can look at other things. So, we know that going forward, that there's going to have to be reasoning for this casting. Why would Disney do this? Why would they create such a controversy? Well, it's easy. This is created because they need hype and headlines surrounding these movies. See, the live action Disney movies are not a sure thing. They're not a guaranteed moneymaker. We know this because the Dumbo remake did not do well at the box office. The Mary Poppins live action movie did not do well at the box office. Now, Aladdin did well at the box office. Jungle Book did well at the box office. So we see that depending on the movie and the subject matter, there can and can't be large returns as far as box office money is concerned. So how do we mitigate this? Well, there's two factors that we need to consider. The first factor is, how do we make the most box office return? Well, there's a problem. The Little Mermaid project has been in development for a long time. But while it has been in development, the Asian market produced its own Little Mermaid. It's called The Mermaid. And they essentially did what should have been done with this Haley Bailey situation, which is they created their own mermaid while basically taking the premise of The Little Mermaid and developing it for their own audience and giving her a different name. She's not named Ariel, obviously. Now, with that being said, now that the Chinese market has their own mermaid property, this particular mermaid property probably won't do well in the Asian market, that being the Little Mermaid remake. It wouldn't have really mattered if she was cast as a white actress or a black actress or what have you. It wouldn't have mattered because the Chinese have their own, therefore that's going to be their iconic mermaid, their default mermaid, and Thus, you're not going to get that huge box office boom that you normally get from the Asian market. So, how do we get a large box office return from the domestic market, since that's going to be the next largest market to target? Well, we can look at a previous Disney owned property, that being Black Panther. Black Panther is the best debuted Marvel movie for a new property. What that means is that uh, when Black Panther debuted in the MCU with his own movie, uh, his movie has done the best. That particular property, Black Panther, crossed over $1 billion. No other Marvel movie, with the exception of Captain Marvel, has gotten that far with box office returns, with it being their first movie. Not Captain America, not Iron Man, not Thor. None of these particular characters resonated with the domestic audience like Black Panther. And that particular audience, the people that drove those box office sales, was the Black community. And they drove those sales by repeat viewings, by great word of mouth, because the movie was a good movie. So, with that being said, Disney now knows that the black dollar is worth something. It's worth pursuing. But how do they pursue it? So with Black Panther, you have a character, T'Challa, who has his own backstory, his own universe, his own world to build around, and you can make a great story around that. But with this Little Mermaid announcement, it's almost like one step forward, 10 steps back, because we're just going to use an existing story and make certain characters black. And so you have a good example of how to court the black audience in Black Panther, and then you have this example, which is tokenism at best. So why court the black audience? Like I said, this made $1 billion. Black Panther made $1 billion. But there's a way to court the black audience that I feel would have been more respectful of the black audience and the black dollar. It's just that Disney's live action movies are all lazy retellings. So by making a lazy retelling and then palette swapping on top of it, you can create the most money without having to go through the effort of being creative. So all you're going to get with this movie is essentially a black casting. The songs are going to get remixed a little bit, not terribly, uh, but a little bit, just to make them, slightly original. And then, you know, a live retelling of an animated feature starring a little black girl. We deserve better than that. Haley Bailey deserves better than that. And the wider viewing audience deserves something a little bit more creative from a multi-billion-dollar corporation and entertainment entity such as Disney. So, now we know that this casting isn't done in a vacuum. And the reason I say that is because now that Haley Bailey will be Ariel in The Little Mermaid, what does that mean for the rest of the cast? Does that mean now that King Triton is going to be cast as a black actor? And if so, what is the reaction to that from the existing audience and from the audience that you're courting? Is Prince Eric going to be cast as a black person, or is he going to be cast as a white person? And what kind of reaction does that get? Ursula the Sea Witch, can she be cast as a black actress, or does she have to be cast as a white actress? And what kind of connotation does that really send? What message does that send to the rest of the community if you cast her as a white actress, or what kind of message does it send if you cast her as a black actress? Because the focus so far of this particular project has been turned racial. Now, everything about this movie, whether it be the casting or the writing or anything else, is now going to be viewed through a racial lens, which is going to date the project, which is something that the original didn't have to deal with, because the original Little Mermaid Disney movie is timeless. That's the reason that they can take movies, put them in the vault, bring them out later, and then resell them, because they're timeless, they're not dated. Whereas this one, because it's so focused on racial identity now, even if it's not overtly done through the story, just through the headlines and the buzz around it, is going to date the film. So ultimately, making a new character, making an original story and giving it the title of The Little Mermaid would have been the way to go. It would have been respectful to the black audience. It would have been, it wouldn't have been seen as taking from the existing audience of The Little Mermaid or the ginger community, and it would have been a great springboard for Haley Bailey as far as um, being able to have a character that was her own. But Disney didn't decide to do that. They decided to do what a lot of companies are doing as far as entertainment is concerned, and basically do a lazy rehash and a retelling. It's in the same vein of the new Star Wars movies, in the same vein as all of the other remakes that keep happening that are just pale imitations of the original. And again, Haley Bailey deserved better, the black community deserved better, and the viewing audience that likes Disney movies deserves better. So I don't really view this as a triumph. I view this as lazy. So, if you agree with me, let me know in the comments section. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments section. Hit us up on social media. We're on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube. We're on Minds.com. We're on BitChute. Let us know. Send us a comment. Tell us what you think. And we'll see you on the next episode of We Need to Talk.
Remember, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.